Hey guys, this is Coffee here. One of the biggest problems I've noticed in the author and comic artist community is marketing. Bad marketing. People just don't know how to promote and sell their book. Whether it be through Kickstarter, or Facebook groups, or Twitter blogs, they're bad at marketing. So I've put together a list of 10 things I do to promote my work, and 10 things that make me not want to buy the work of other authors. I've paid a lot of attention to what makes me want to buy someone's book so that I know how to promote my own story and my own book to make other people want to buy it. And I put together 10 reasons why your book isn't selling. And if your book, story, or anything you do to market your book falls into this list, you might want to give it a second look. So click on over to the next class, and we will start with number 10 of why your book isn't selling. Alright, starting with the thing that influences your book marketing the least, we're going to start at number 10. Now this one might come to a surprise to most people, but having a bad story or bad art is actually the least of your problems. A lot of times, if the story is good and the art is bad, it will still sell for the story alone. Same way with the other one. If the art is excellent, but the story is bad, you might still sell, especially if every other aspect of your marketing is on point. So this will influence your story the least, but I feel like it should still be on the list because it will deter some people. I personally am very picky about art that goes into comics or manga. And if the art is really bad, it might influence me to not pick up the story. So even though it's the weakest point, I still felt like it fit on this list. What you could do about this instead, to fix this problem, is if you have a bad story, there's no reason for that. Just take it back and rewrite it. Rewrite it, let beta readers read it, let other people read it and tell you if the story is good or not. That way you balance out the story and the art. If the art is bad, if you are the artist, just do an hour study a day of art and study the basics, and you will gradually improve. And you can work on your manga or comic book while you're doing this. If you're hiring an artist, if the artist is not producing quality enough art, you might need to find a new artist. Alright, now we're on to the 9th reason why your book isn't selling. You're a trend chaser, or your book is cliche. This happens a lot, especially like when Twilight became big. You had a ton of teenage romance novels with supernatural aspects, and all of them were equally as badly written. Same thing with Sword Art Online. How many MMO anime and manga came out during that time? They were all trend chasers, but no one remembered the trend chasers. Now there are exceptions. For example, Overlord, which greatly excelled over Sword Art Online, and a couple of Twilight knockoffs that might have actually been okay, but none of them were remembered as well as the original that started the trend. Now, this is pretty low on the list, because even if you are a trend chaser, it will hurt your sales, because people won't remember you and won't come back for your next book because, well, they assume that you're just going to chase another trend. If people are a big fan of what that trend was, they might still invest in your book. But any serious readers or those who didn't like the trend, instantly your name is going to be stapled to the trend and you're not going to be remembered. And to be good at marketing, your name is pretty much your brand. You have to make sure yourself is marketable as well. And if you are labeled as a trend chaser, well, guess what? You're just in bad water now. Alright, number 8 of the reasons why your book isn't selling. Your work is too familiar. Sometimes this will help your sales because people are familiar with your work and they know you do good stuff. Like, let's just say you are a frequent member of, Facebook art groups or DeviantArt, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. Your work is getting familiar. On one side, this is good promotion, but on another side, if you have been doing this for a long time, and you also show your bad work is going to, hurt your sales. Or if you have produced comics in the past that are absolute crap, people are going to remember that. And they may not buy your newest work because of that. At the same time, they might just to see your, progression. Just keep in mind, if your work is too familiar, mainly your bad work, if your bad work is too familiar, it will hurt your sales because people remember your bad work just as much as they remember your good work. So post often, but not too often. And make sure to show mostly your best work, and just be careful with what you promote. Alright, on to number 7. Playing on the last point of number 8, where your work is too familiar, number 7 is your work isn't familiar enough. Now, I know this is kind of contradictory because I said in the previous one, be careful with what you post, but don't be too careful to where you post nothing. If you post your work often, people will become familiar with your work and say, hey, I really like this artist, I want to see what they create. But if you never post anything, whether you're posting scripts or talking about your story or anything, if you don't ever post anything about your story, your art, or anything, people aren't going to know you, therefore they're not going to want to invest in you. The best thing you can do for yourself is make yourself well known. Just not too well known to where people, playing on the previous point on number 8, don't become too familiar, but don't become non-existent. There's a perfect balance somewhere, and I suggest you find it. Your story relies on it. Number 6 on the reasons why your book isn't selling. Bland characters. I'm sure you've seen a few movies or a few anime, read a few manga, read a few comics, to where the characters are just bland. They have no personality, no redeeming qualities, and they're pretty much there to mess stuff up, fight bad guys, and that's it. Or maybe they're staple stereotypes from books you've read in the past. This is a killer for a lot of series. A lot of times when people read a book, whether it be novel, manga, or comic, a lot of times they want to get invested in the characters. And if there is no character to invest in, well, guess what? Your sales are going to be really bad. People aren't going to like the characters, whether it be their design or their personality. It needs to work. The design needs to fit the personality, and the personality needs to fit the design, and both need to work and complement your story. If you have a piece of cardboard for a main character, your book isn't going to sell because people aren't going to get invested in your character. I've seen a lot of people reject a lot of good anime because they can't get invested in the characters. For example, Yona of the Dawn. There was a guy I met that absolutely refused to watch that one because the characters looked generic to him. That's just personal preference for this particular guy, but it's something to keep in mind. If your characters look bland, people aren't going to get invested in them. If they act just as bland as they look, well, then you might as well not even have a story because your characters are cardboard pieces of nothing. So make sure to put time and thought into your characters, into their design, the personality. Even if you're writing a novel, you need to know what your characters look like so that you can properly explain what they look like. Just saying they have short blonde hair and wear t-shirts and jeans isn't quite good enough. You need to elaborate on what kind of t-shirts, what kind of jeans, what kind of short blonde hair. You need to really focus on these things to make your characters come to life. Number 5 on the reasons why your book isn't selling. You're a shitty person. Now, before you get mad, listen to me on this. If you are constantly on Facebook, Twitter, or whatnot, constantly bashing everyone else around you, people aren't gonna buy your book. A lot of times, when people buy your book, they want to support you because they like you. If you have bad story, bad art, bland characters, all the things I've listed before, they might still buy your book if they like you because they want to support you as a person. But if you're a bad person or one that is constantly bringing on the negative, constantly complaining, and constantly bashing your readers, they're not going to want to support you, even if you have golden story, golden art, and golden characters. They might look at it every now and then because of the redeeming qualities, but as long as they don't want to support you, they will not support you. They could be supporting authors that they actually like. So make sure to censor yourself when you're on social media. Social media is a weapon, use it wisely, especially when it comes to your author platform. But now at the same time, being a goody-goody two-shoes doesn't work either. Make sure to show yourself for who you are, just don't constantly complain and post negativity. People are going to get bored with you, unfollow you, or just plain old hate you. And that's not what you want, and that's not what your book needs. So be careful on social media. Number 4 on reasons why your book isn't selling. Bad synopsis. Your story doesn't sound good. You could have a good story, brilliant art, brilliant characters, a well thought out world. You are marketable, you're a good person, you're not a trend chaser, what you have is original. Everything is great, except your synopsis. If your synopsis sounds really bad or really boring, people probably aren't going to open your book because of the synopsis alone. The synopsis is one of your biggest weapons to sell your book because it's literally explaining your book. And if your synopsis makes your great story sound bad, you need to rewrite it. It could come down to something as simple as rewording it, finding a different word, finding a certain word to display certain moods, or things like that. If your synopsis is filled with bland language and makes your story sound like a generic, a generic slice of cardboard, well, people probably aren't going to buy it, especially if your book is in the mature rating, because a lot of bookstores will put that in plastic wrap. Therefore, the possible buyers, can't open up your book to see the great art or the great story. All they have is the synopsis and the cover art. So you have to really be careful about what your synopsis is. And if you're like me and really bad at writing synopsis, you are welcome to go get some help. Whether you have a friend that's really good with grammar, really good with words, or if you have to go find someone professional. If you have to pay money for someone to write your synopsis and make it a good one, you might want to check into that because a bad synopsis is a killer for any book or manga or whatever you might be selling. Even on the back of a lot of video games. I know there's a lot of games that I haven't bought because on the back, pretty much the synopsis of the game is completely raving about the voice actors and the graphics. I don't care about that stuff. I want to know about what the game's about. But if I don't get that in the synopsis, that's a no-buy for me. Number 3, bad cover art and bad marketing. Now, I know this entire class is about bad marketing, but hear me out. Let's just say, for example, you market your book as a trilogy. If you're only selling the print version as a single book, you have lied to your customers. And therefore, you're not going to be selling the physical books because they're probably going to want a trilogy. You can put all 3 books in a single unit later. But for now, sell it as a trilogy because that's how you're marketing it. And I understand that getting a book reformatted or getting professional cover art is expensive. But if you really want your book to go well, you need to do what you need to do. Expensive professional edits, expensive professional formatting, expensive professional cover art. That will show your readers and possible customers that you care about what you have, you care about your story, and that you are willing to do whatever it takes to get good quality. Otherwise, people are just going to think of you as, a throwaway. Because obviously, if you are messing up on your cover art and your marketing that either you're stupid or you just don't care enough to get good quality. Now, if you are making a comic book or a manga, or even if you have great skills in art and graphic design, sure, do the cover yourself, but make sure it looks good. Speak to your audience, show them the cover, and ask them what they think. Show them the drafts. Not only will this get your followers excited about your book, but when you show the cover reveal, it'll make them feel like they had a hand in helping you make it. And that'll make them that much more excited to purchase your book. Speak with your audience, speak with your possible readers, and don't skimp on your marketing or cover art. If you have to put in extra dollars, do it. Your book deserves it, and so do you. Alright, we're getting really close to the bottom, so I just wanted to go ahead and ask you, do any of these sound like you? Tell me in the projects section. Show me what you're doing to market, and show me what the areas where you think you need help. I'd be glad to help you with your marketing. Just let me know what you need. Let me know if any of these things apply to you, and what you plan to do to fix it. Alright, but for now, we are down to number 2, link drop and robot ads. I'm sure you've seen them. If you follow a lot of authors like I do, you see just random pictures with maybe a picture of the cover art, a quote from the book, and something that says buy here. No comment from the author, nothing, just, pretty much an ad that looks like a robot could make it. Now, these are okay if done well, but usually they're not. Usually all you see from the author on this author's page is, the robot ad over and over and over. Nothing new from the author. You don't get to hear about his progress of what it's like to write a book. You know nothing of the author except for the fact that he drops robot ads. Does this author even exist? You start to wonder after a while. Because you got the repeated ads that have no flavor, especially after the third time they've shoved it down your throat. If you are an author, don't do this. Sure, you can make that kind of ad every now and then to let people know that where they can buy your work. But you need to do this on top of every other good marketing that you have learned. If all you do is drop the same ad over and over and over, that's not good marketing. In fact, it'll make people too used to your work, and they'll completely abandon your work altogether because your work has become too familiar and too repetitive. You have to really be careful about the kind of marketing you use, and everything in moderation. You can have the, link drop ads to let people know where to buy your book. That's fine, but have something else to go with it. Either a quote or say something about your book. Just don't drop the same robotic ad week after week after week after week with nothing new to say. Alright, this has been 10 reasons why your book isn't selling. Before we get to number 1, let's go ahead and look at the other reasons why your book isn't selling. Number 10, bad story or bad art. This one is the least of your problems, but it still might be a problem. Number 9, you're a trend chaser, or your work is cliche. Number 8, your work is too familiar. Number 7, your work isn't familiar enough. Number 6, your characters are bland. Number 5, you're a shitty person. Number 4, you have a bad synopsis. Number 3, you have bad cover art or bad marketing. Number 2, you drop robot ads. And now for the number 1 reason why your book isn't selling, you're not talking about it. Why are people gonna want to read your book if you're not talking about it. They don't even know it exists. All they see is maybe you post pictures of your breakfast every morning or your dinner every night. Maybe you post pictures of your dog, but you don't talk about what you're working on. Even if you're in the drafting phase, start talking about it. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you might already be too late. Start talking about it now if you haven't already. Talk about the characters. Talk about things that they might be going through, without giving spoilers. Talk about their pets, their family. Talk about the world you've created, and maybe some of the situations that have happened in it. If you're working on your character's design, show it on social media. Even if it's just a draft, it would make your followers and your friends that much more closer to your characters and your story. If you're a novelist and just typing your story, talk about the tediousness of typing. Talk about keyboards. Talk about, what it's like to type away at a keyboard. Talk about your story. Talk about your job. If you don't talk about it, people don't know it exists. And even if you just slightly mention it in a conversation, the least you've done is planted a seed. And maybe later they'll ask, hey, didn't you say that you're writing a book? And there you go. You have permission to completely unleash your obsession with your book. Show people that you're passionate about it. I can't tell you how many authors I have met. Authors, graphic novelists, manga artists, comic artists. They have great skills, great story, great art, great synopsis, everything is working out for them, but they are getting no sales and no business because they don't talk about it. They're too shy to talk about their story. Oh, well, my story isn't ready yet. Even if it's not ready yet, show it. I was talking about my story before it even was a definite thing. I came up with the concept of Legend of the Erased when I was 8 years old, and I never shut up about it. And now, a lot of longtime authors that is in my circle are asking me how I've done such good marketing. And it really comes down to this: I talk about it. So if you have a story, tell your friends, tell your family, tell strangers on the street. Just the other day, I was at the mall, and those guys at the kiosks to where they're like, hey, buy my stuff. I ended up selling a book to him when he was trying to sell a product to me. And through nothing else but just talking about it. All you have to do is talk about your story, and it will get people interested, especially if you have, an actual good story and actual good art. If you talk about it and show it off and act like you're proud of it, people want to read it because they want to see what you're so proud of. Alright, and that has been 10 reasons why your book isn't selling. If your story, you, or your marketing applies to anything on this list, you might want to give it a second look. Let me know in the project section or in the comment section if any of these apply to you and what you might be doing to fix it. Or if you have found any other marketing techniques that work, please tell me about them. Show me how you market. This is Coffee. Have a nice day.